Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
I had a whole bunch of people send me a story, which I couldn't even begin to track all the people who sent it to me. But it's from Michigan, and it confused a lot of people. And much of the news reporting, I'm not going to say it's wrong, but it's slanted in a way that's misleading many people. So listen very carefully to how I explain this, because I'm not saying what happened was right. I simply want to explain what happened. And it has to do with the Detroit teen detained over her missed homework. And I'm going to give you the story as told by the BBC. I could give it to you from the Free Press, Detroit News, MLive, all the different papers in Michigan covered it, and many papers around the country covered it, and of course, around the world. So we have the BBC. So protests after Detroit teen detained over missed homework. Of course, the teen's not in Detroit. The teen's in Oakland County, which is north of Detroit, quite a hike. But I will tell people I'm from Detroit also. I don't live there. So this is just a little clarification. A Michigan judge's decision to send a 15-year-old girl to juvenile detention for violating her probation by not completing her online homework during the coronavirus lockdown has prompted protests and calls for her release. Okay, so what happened was, the headlines say that a 15-year-old girl was sent to juvenile detention, i.e. jail for kids, because she didn't do her homework. And that is technically true on some levels, but again, the nuances here are very, very important. Now, she's reportedly been detained since mid-May, and here's part of the problem. She's a minor, so we don't know her name. Her story's been widely publicized by different news outlets, but because she's a minor, we don't know her name, we don't know all of the exact facts of her case, but she was nicknamed Grace in one of the stories. They said, we'll call her Grace. So from now on, we're going to call her Grace in this story as well, although that may or may not be her real name. I doubt it. And the state's Supreme Court said recently it will review her case. Now, ProPublica is who started getting the word out on this. They highlighted Grace's case in a report earlier this week. Following interviews with her mother, the news site described how the teenager had attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, and had already been struggling with behavioral issues. Okay? She was placed on probation in mid-April via Zoom during a juvenile court hearing after facing an assault and theft charge last year. One of the terms of the probation was a requirement to do her schoolwork. So that sentence has a lot to unpack. Ignore the Zoom part, because it was a hearing. And if it's being done in court, live face-to-face, or being done over Zoom, it's still a hearing. And people wanted courts to take place, so to do it over Zoom is no different than doing it any other way, except for, I understand there's differences, but the point is legally it's the same. So she was in court in April, and she was facing an assault charge and a theft charge. Now, I've read a bunch of different versions of what happened here, but I believe the assault charge was brought by her mother, and the theft charge was a cell phone of a fellow student. I've heard all kinds of explanations for that, but I'm not going to get into the underlying facts of the case. I wasn't there, and I doubt that you were either. But it's important to understand that she is facing an assault charge and a theft charge, and she's 15 years old. So she's at this hearing, and she gets placed on probation. Okay, so I'm reading between the lines here, but basically what happens is, do you want to go to trial, or do you want to work something out? If you go to trial, you could be found not guilty and you walk. Or if you're found guilty, you got consequences. Or do you want to work something out? Working something out is probation. So quite often what happens in a case like this, or a case like any other, a court will evaluate the situation and say, here's what you're going to do for probation. We're not going to lock you up, send you off to the juvenile detention center. We're going to let you go home, live your life, but you must do the following things. And the most of these I've seen were when I used to handle a lot of drunk driving cases. Not a lot, but I handle enough. And it's extremely common in a drunk driving case where they're going to say, okay, instead of sending you to jail, we're going to put you on probation. Here's a whole list of things you've got to do. And the list of things you've got to do, some of it sounds like punishment, some of it sounds like busy work, and some of it is clearly done there for a reason. So for instance, I can tell you that if you were a drunk driver, convicted of drunk driving, and you got probation, okay, part of your probation is you got to go to Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, I know people out there who swear by it. I know people out there who go, it's worthless. People's opinions on AA run the entire spectrum. And I've had to talk with my clients where I say, look, I don't care if you like it or not. We can ask the judge if there's an alternative you can do for it. But if the judge likes AA, the judge is going to say, well, if you want probation, that's part of the probation. If you don't want probation, we can go to trial. Want to go to trial? So it's part of the bargain you make is the list of probation agreements. Okay? So I have seen people in court before get sentenced who were students, who were told by a judge, you must do your homework, you must attend school, you must stay out of trouble at school. And they'll often have it defined a little bit more clearly than that. But for instance, no attendance problems. You show up at school. If you don't show up at school, you better have a doctor's note. Okay? And I've seen them say, you better do your homework. You better, and so they give you a list of things that you've got to do. And they often tailor it towards what they think is going to help you. So that's one of the reasons that a drunk driver convicted might be told you go to AA. You wouldn't say that to somebody who's charged with assault while they're sober. No indication you've got an alcohol problem, you don't send them to AA. So you try to tailor these things to meet the situation. So when Grace was in court and she got put on probation, one of the terms of the probation was a requirement that she do her homework. Okay? So the report from ProPublica says that the start of Grace's probation coincided with the first days of remote schoolwork. And she quickly became overwhelmed without the in-person support of her teachers. And that very well could be true, but I seem to recall that Michigan shut down in mid-March, and she was placed in probation in mid-April. But that may or may not be a deal there. At a mid-May hearing at the Oakland County Family Court Division to decide whether Grace had violated her probation, Judge Mary Ellen Brennan, and by the way, this is not the same Brennan that I did a video about where I said the worst judge who ever lived. That was Teresa Brennan. No relation as far as I know. Judge Mary Ellen Brennan found the girl guilty on failure to submit to any schoolwork and getting up for school, and called Grace a threat to the community because of the previous charges against her. Judge Brennan has so far not commented publicly on the ruling. So what happened was somebody reported she's not doing her homework and she's not checking in for school. And I'm not sure how the schooling works there. The school that she's at is a school called Groves, Wiley Groves School. I'm not making that up. And it's in Birmingham, Michigan. Technically it might be Beverly Hills, Michigan, but it was part of the Birmingham school system for a long time. And I know that when I was growing up, I lived in the school district for Birmingham Seahome. And the kids who lived on the other side of the city went to Birmingham Groves, as did kids from Beverly Hills, Michigan, Franklin, and a few other nearby suburbs. But she goes to Groves, okay? So she's at Groves. Somebody there reported her for not doing her homework and not checking in for her classes, however you do that. So they had a hearing. Now, I can tell you that if you are on probation, they will follow up with you to find out if you're sticking to your probation. You may have heard of the phrase probation officer. And they'll check to make sure you're doing your probation. And so if you're not, what they'll often do is have what's called a show cause hearing. And a show cause hearing is where the court's telling you, in essence, you're going to need to come in here and explain yourself. Show cause why you shouldn't be found in contempt, in violation, in this or that, but a show cause hearing. Okay, and again, this might be slightly different because this is a juvenile setting, but the concept is the same. So somebody reported she's not doing her homework, she's not checking in for classes. That was the report. That gets sent to the court, probably through a probation officer. She gets set for a show cause hearing, and at the mid-May hearing at the Oakland County Family Court Division to decide whether Grace had violated her probation, Judge Brennan found the girl guilty on failure to submit to any schoolwork and getting up for school, and called her a threat to the community because of the previous charges against her. And do recall that one of the charges against her was assault. It was assault and theft, two different charges. Judge Brennan has so far not commented, as I said before. So now, fellow students of hers and teachers at Groves High School came out in support at a rally on Thursday, and several thousand people have signed online petitions calling for her release. An 18-year-old student told Reuters, a lot of people were behind in their work this semester. No one had motivation to do anything because the teachers weren't teaching and we were all online. I know so many people that didn't do their homework. Okay, it's irrelevant. It's not the point. None of those people are on probation as far as you know, are they? Because if you're not doing your homework, you get a bad grade. If you're on probation and you're not doing your homework, you're in trouble with the court. That's the difference. Social studies teacher Jeff Wickersham told Reuters, "It didn't seem like the judge or the caseworker knew how grades and due dates and things were structured during the pandemic shutdown in the spring. I think this is a huge injustice." Well, I'm not sure what evidence came out about that, because the judge or the caseworker didn't know how grades and due dates and things were structured. Michigan Supreme Court said on Thursday it would review Grace's case after lawyers for the teenager filed a motion seeking an emergency review. John Nevin, who is the court's communications director at Oakland Circuit Court, said in a statement, "The state court administrative office is working with the Oakland Circuit Court to examine the processes in this case." And I can tell you that there's also a hearing set for early this upcoming week in the Oakland County Circuit Court for the judge to revisit this issue. So now, just to clarify, because I know many people are already typing angry comments, not understanding what I said, that's fine. It's going to happen. Always happens. And again, it's my fault. If you don't get my point, it's my fault. Grace was brought before the court facing 2 criminal charges. Instead of fighting the charges, agreed to probation. Now, I don't know if she had an attorney there. I don't know. But if she did have an attorney would explain to her that, by the way, going on probation is a bunch of requirements that you do. And if you do them and meet them, you don't have any problems with the court. And eventually, you move on with your life. If you want to, you can fight these charges or take probation. So they give her a list of things, say, you must do these things. I assure you that there came a time where either an attorney or the probation officer or both sat down with her and said, you must do these things. And by the way, they'll often say, if you have trouble with doing any of them, let us know. Explain to us, because they'll work with you. I've had situations before somebody had something happen where they couldn't meet the terms of their probation for a reason. The probation officer looked at it and said, I buy that. I understand that. That makes complete sense to me. So somebody then reports to the court that Grace has violated her probation by not doing her homework. She gets brought before the court, and the court, show cause hearing, basically determined she didn't fulfill the terms of probation and sent her to the detention center. She was not sent to the detention center because she didn't do her homework. She was sent to the detention center because she violated her probation. You may say, Steve, but violating her probation was not doing her homework. That's true. But by phrasing it the way that all the news agencies have, suggests that in Michigan, if you don't do your homework, you go to jail. It's not true. Only if you're on probation, and that's one of the terms of probation. This is, in 29 years of practicing law, the first time I've ever heard of this happening. Now, that's what makes it news. That is what makes it news. But, quite frankly, part of the deal here is it's very unusual because you've got the situation with a pandemic. You've got the situation with the way the courts are operating. And you've got the situation with all the various protests that are in the news because Grace is black. And that's something that people are looking at saying, is that part of this? I don't know. I've not been at any of the hearings. As far as I know, none of the hearings are publicized or public. I don't know if they were or not. At least I didn't see them. But I can tell you that if you said, Steve, but in your opinion, was this the right thing to do? Again, I wasn't at the hearing. I've been at hearings before and seen crazy stuff happen, both on one end or the other, meaning that the person appears to be completely in the right and the judge goes off the deep end. Or where the person goes off the deep end and the judge stays calm. I've seen all kinds of stuff happen before. But have I ever seen somebody jailed, or in this case sent to detention, because they violated their probation? Yes, I have. Yes, I have. It happens all the time. I've just never seen it for homework. And because of how far we are into the video right now, I assure you that 3/4 of the people have checked out already and are already screaming in the comment section about how wrong I am because they don't know what I'm about to say. Judges have discretion. Judges are supposed to exercise discretion. Discretion means that there's a range of things a judge can do, and as long as they stay within the range, they're okay. At a show cause hearing on a violation probation allegation, which all rhymes, the judge could do any of the following. The judge could do the detention. The judge could revoke the probation and say, you know something? We're going to try you on this. Or the judge could say, what's going on here? Are you having trouble at school? Is there any chance we can get a counselor or somebody from the school onto the Zoom call and talk about it? Because our concern here is not to punish you. Our concern here is to help you. We want to help you. And the reason that we put do your homework into your probation agreement as a requirement, I'm not trying to punish you. You should do your homework. It's good for you. Education is good for you. Education is a tool. Some say education is a weapon if you know how to use it right. But education is good. Maybe we can get somebody on the Zoom conference call right now from your school who's going to check in and explain to us, or you can explain to them, or all of us can get together and figure out how you can do your homework. And if there's a problem, get you help. Schools have got counselors. There's departments at schools that deal with problems that people have with their homework. And someone who has got ADHD has got different needs. And those different needs, different requirements. And so I think if the judge, and again, this is if, because I have not seen like the hearing, so I don't know exactly what happened at it. But if the judge really said, you didn't do your homework, go to the detention center for violation of your probation. If the judge did that, judge is wrong. Because in my mind, the judge should be exercising discretion and looking at the goal. And the goal is not to punish people in front of you. That's not your number one goal. Your number one goal is to try to solve problems. Be a problem solver. Try to fix things, okay? You're not helping anything by sending a teenager to juvenile detention center when you could be instead sitting down with, figuratively speaking, over a Zoom conference call, the various people who are invested in this. The mother, the teacher, the guidance counselor, whoever it may be. Sit them all down, figuratively speaking, and say, how can we get this done? Summer vacation's coming up. Get the schoolwork done, and there goes one big chunk of your probation. Seems like that'd be the correct answer here. So as far as the headlines go, the headlines are technically incorrect. She wasn't jailed for not doing her homework. She wasn't jailed in the first place. She was sent to the detention center. Number two, she was sent to the detention center because she violated her probation. I know it's a technical thing, but it's correct to say it that way. But second of all, I do believe the judge is wrong. So there you go. Better or worse? Questions, comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. I don't know about the key to success, but the key to failure is trying to please everybody.